My name is Trevor, and I just turned 34. Family has always been complicated for me, especially with my brother Mitchell getting all the attention. 2 months ago, they threw him this extravagant birthday celebration with expensive gifts and heartfelt speeches, so naturally I was expecting something similar for mine. Instead, I got a joke box. A literal joke box. The kind you get from a dollar store. Before I tell you about the deep hurt of realizing I was never a priority to my family, let me know where you are watching from and be sure to like and subscribe for more stories about family dynamics that might feel familiar. I should probably start by telling you a bit more about myself. I work as a software engineer in Seattle, Washington. Not to brag, but I am pretty successful at what I do. I own my apartment in one of the better neighborhoods, have a stable career track at a respected tech company, and generally have my life together, at least professionally speaking. My father, Roger, works as a senior manager at a manufacturing firm. He has always been the stern, practical type. Growing up, he rarely showed emotion, except occasional pride when I brought home straight, as or when Mitchell accomplished something noteworthy in sports. My mother, Diana, is a high school English teacher. She is more emotionally available than my father, but still maintained a certain distance that I could never quite bridge. From an early age, I felt this invisible wall between me and my parents. Despite my efforts to make them proud, there was always this sense that I was falling short somehow. I remember bringing home a math test with 98% in 3rd grade, and instead of praise, my father asked about the 2% I missed. That was typical of our relationship. When I was 6 years old, Mitchell was born. I still remember the day my parents brought him home from the hospital. Everyone was making such a fuss over him, cooing and awing at his little fingers and toes. My grandparents, who usually only visited once a year, stayed for 3 weeks. It was like the sun suddenly had a new center to orbit around. Mitchell grew up to be everything I was not. While I was introverted and academically focused, Mitchell was outgoing, athletic, and naturally charming. He has this ability to walk into a room and immediately make friends with everyone. Now he works in advertising, which suits his personality perfectly. Tall, conventionally handsome, and always ready with a witty comment. Mitchell is the kind of person people are naturally drawn to. Our relationship is not bad exactly. We are civil to each other and exchange birthday and Christmas gifts. We see each other at family gatherings and can maintain pleasant conversation, but we are not close. We do not call each other to share good news or seek advice during tough times. Mitchell has his circle of friends, and I have mine, and there is very little overlap between our worlds. The preferential treatment began in subtle ways. When I was 7, and Mitchell was 1, I got a remote-controlled car for Christmas. Mitchell got a mini electric Jeep he could actually sit in and drive around the yard. My parents justified it by saying Mitchell was too young for complex toys, but that car cost 4 times what my present did. On my 10th birthday, my parents forgot to pick me up from a school event because Mitchell had a minor cold. I waited for 2 hours before finally calling my neighbor to come get me. When I got home, they barely apologized, too focused on taking Mitchell's temperature and making him chicken soup. When I was 16 and got accepted to the state science fair, neither of my parents attended because it coincided with Mitchell's Little League championship game. My project won 2nd place. I stood alone during the awards ceremony, watching other kids celebrate with their families. In contrast, when Mitchell qualified for a regional swim meet at age 10, both parents took the day off work to attend. They even pulled me out of school despite it being final exam week, saying families should support each other. The double standard was hard to miss. Despite all this, I worked hard to earn their approval. I got into a prestigious university on a partial scholarship. I graduated with honors. I secured a good job right out of college and have been steadily advancing my career. I bought my own home before turning 30, something neither of my parents had managed. I have done everything right according to their playbook. Yet somehow it has never been quite enough. At family gatherings, my accomplishments are acknowledged briefly before the conversation turns to Mitchell's latest adventure or career development. My mother keeps a photo wall in their home. Mitchell's graduation pictures, sports trophies, and candid shots dominate the space. My presence is limited to a single graduation photo and a group family portrait from 5 years ago. I still attend every Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter gathering. I call on their birthdays and send thoughtful gifts. I helped my father with computer problems and assisted my mother in setting up her classroom website. I have been the dutiful son in every way possible, still hoping that one day they will see me, really see me, and acknowledge my worth. It may sound pathetic to still crave parental approval at my age. I have friends who have cut off toxic family members and seem happier for it. My girlfriend Rachel thinks I should establish firmer boundaries. But there is this stubborn part of me that cannot let go of the hope that things could change, that my parents might finally realize they have two sons worthy of love and attention. This hope has led to countless disappointments over the years. Birthday after birthday spent watching Mitchell receive lavish celebrations while mine passed with minimal acknowledgement. Holiday after holiday listening to my parents brag about Mitchell to extended family while my achievements went unmentioned. Year after year of swallowing my hurt and telling myself next time would be different. And yet, despite everything, a part of me still believed that maybe, just maybe, this year would be the year things finally changed. 2 months before my birthday, Mitchell turned 28. My parents rented out the entire back room of Canlis, one of the most expensive restaurants in Seattle. The guest list included 50 people, a mix of family, friends, and even some of Mitchell's business associates. They had hired a professional photographer to capture the evening and arranged for a custom playlist of Mitchell's favorite songs to play throughout the night. I arrived 20 minutes early to help set up, but everything was already perfectly arranged. Crystal glasses gleamed under the atmospheric lighting. Elaborate flower arrangements adorned each table. A 3-tier cake stood as the centerpiece, professionally decorated with fondant designs reflecting Mitchell's interests. My parents had spared no expense. The open bar featured top-shelf liquor, and the menu included prime rib lobster and various other delicacies. They had even arranged for a video montage of Mitchell's life to play during dinner, set to sentimental music that had several guests dabbing at their eyes. My gift for Mitchell was a high-end smartwatch. It had cost me nearly $700, which was a significant chunk of my discretionary budget for the month. Mitchell seemed pleased with it, though it was quickly overshadowed by my parents' gift, which they presented with dramatic flair. They handed Mitchell an envelope with a flourish. Inside was documentation for an all-expenses-paid 2-week trip to Europe for him and his girlfriend Amber. The itinerary included stops in Paris, Rome, and Barcelona, with luxury accommodations throughout. The estimated cost of this gift had to be well into the 5 figures. Mitchell was ecstatic, hugging our parents and lifting my mother off her feet in his enthusiasm. After the gift presentation, my father tapped his glass for attention and delivered a speech about Mitchell that left many guests misty-eyed. He called Mitchell their greatest pride, their shining star. He spoke about how Mitchell had exceeded every expectation they ever had for him. My mother followed with her own tearful speech, talking about what a joy it had been to raise such a wonderful son. I sat at my table clapping along with everyone else, maintaining a smile that felt increasingly brittle as the night wore on. I was genuinely happy for my brother. He is not a bad person, and he deserves good things. But I could not help the pang of jealousy that shot through me, coupled with the anxious question of whether I would ever be celebrated with such enthusiasm. My own previous birthdays flashed through my mind. For my 30th, which should have been a milestone, my parents took me to dinner at a mid-range steakhouse. They gave me a sweater and a gift card to Amazon. There was no party, no speeches, no video montage. For my 31st through 33rd birthdays, they simply sent cards with brief messages and occasionally a small check. The contrast was stark and painful, but I told myself not to dwell on it. People have different relationships with their children. Perhaps my parents simply connected more naturally with Mitchell's personality. Perhaps I was partly to blame for not being more assertive about my needs and desires. As Mitchell's party wound down, I helped clean up while he and his friends moved on to a popular nightclub to continue the celebration. My mother thanked me for coming and mentioned offhandedly that they would see me for my birthday in 2 months. This casual reference sparked a small flame of hope. Maybe they were planning something. Maybe they realized that the discrepancy in treatment had become too obvious to ignore. Over the next few weeks, I made a conscious effort to connect more with my parents. I called more frequently, asking about their days and sharing details about my own life. I stopped by their house for impromptu visits, bringing coffee or baked goods. I fixed my father's laptop when it was running slow and helped my mother reorganize her home office. These efforts seemed to be positively received. My parents appeared to enjoy my company, and our conversations flowed more easily than they had in years. This further fueled my hope that perhaps things were changing, that we were establishing a new, more balanced family dynamic. 3 weeks before my birthday, I casually mentioned to my parents that I was thinking of having a small gathering at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just some drinks and food with close friends. I added that I would love for them to come, trying to keep my tone light and expectations reasonable. My mother immediately marked it in her calendar and said they would not miss it. My father nodded in agreement, adding cryptically that they had something special planned. This comment sent my hopes soaring. I left their house that day with a lightness in my step that I had not felt in years when it came to family matters. On the drive home, I allowed myself to imagine what their special plan might be. Perhaps they had realized the disparity in how they treated Mitchell and me. Perhaps they were planning to make up for years of unequal treatment with a grand gesture. I knew it was dangerous to let my expectations rise too high, but I could not help it. For once, I wanted to believe that my parents saw me, valued me, and wanted to celebrate me. The weeks leading up to my birthday were filled with careful preparations and mounting anticipation. I wanted everything to be perfect for the small gathering at my apartment. I thoroughly cleaned every corner of my place, something I rarely do with such attention to detail. I rearranged furniture to create better flow for a party setting, bought new throw pillows for the couch, and even replaced some of the artwork on my walls with more conversational pieces. I spent hours planning the menu. Nothing too fancy, but thoughtful selections that would appeal to various tastes. I ordered gourmet cheese and charcuterie from a specialty shop downtown. I prepared homemade hummus and vegetable platters. I baked my grandmother's famous brown butter chocolate chip cookies, a recipe she had passed down to me before she died. For drinks, I splurged on several bottles of excellent wine, including a Cabernet Sauvignon that cost over $100. I stocked up on craft beers, premium liquors, and ingredients for a signature cocktail I had created specifically for the occasion. My girlfriend Rachel helped with the preparations, though she gently tried to manage my expectations. She has witnessed my disappointment with my family many times over our 2 years together and wanted to protect me from another letdown. As we arranged decorative candles around my living room, Rachel cautiously said, "The place looks amazing, Trevor. Just remember that no matter what happens with your parents, this night is about celebrating you. We are all here because we love and appreciate you." I nodded, but inwardly I was focused on the possibility that this time would be different. My parents had said they had something special planned. Those words kept replaying in my mind, fueling fantasies of what might be coming. Would they surprise me with a meaningful gift? Perhaps tickets to a tech conference I had mentioned wanting to attend, or the high-end camera I had been eyeing for months. Maybe they had arranged something experiential like the cooking class, with a celebrity chef that I had dropped hints about last Christmas. My colleagues at work added to my birthday excitement. They decorated my desk with balloons and got me a card signed by everyone in our department. My team took me out to lunch at my favorite sushi place. My boss even hinted that a promotion might be coming my way soon, saying my recent project work had been noticed by upper management. All these positive developments reinforced my optimistic outlook. Maybe turning 34 would mark a turning point in my life, personally and professionally. Maybe this would finally be the year when everything fell into place. A week before my birthday, I called my parents to confirm details. My mother assured me they would be there at 7 sharp and asked if they should bring anything. I told them just to bring themselves secretly, hoping this was a ploy to disguise whatever surprise they were planning. My father got on the phone briefly and said, "Looking forward to your birthday, son. We have got something that will definitely surprise you." His tone was light, almost playful, which was unusual for him. This further convinced me that something significant was in the works. 3 days before my birthday, I received a text from Mitchell saying he would not be able to make it to my gathering due to an unexpected work commitment. He apologized and promised to make it up to me. While disappointed, I was not entirely surprised. Mitchell and I were not close, and professional obligations had caused him to miss several of my previous birthdays as well. The day before my birthday, I went shopping for new clothes to wear to my own party. I selected a well-fitted blue button-down shirt that Rachel had once said brought out my eyes, paired with my best dark jeans and leather shoes. I wanted to look good in what I imagined would be many photos documenting a memorable evening. That night, Rachel stayed over but noticed my restlessness as we lay in bed. "Try not to build this up too much in your mind," she whispered, stroking my hair. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I am here for you." "I know," I replied, "but I really think this time is different. Dad said they have something special planned. They would not say that if they were just going to show up empty-handed or with some generic gift, right?" Rachel kissed my forehead but did not respond directly to my question. Instead, she said, "I love you. Happy. Almost birthday." Despite her calming presence, I barely slept that night. My mind raced with possibilities, hopes, and yes, fears too. Part of me was afraid to believe things could change, worried that hope would only make the potential disappointment more crushing. But another part, the eternal optimist who still craved parental approval after all these years, could not help but imagine a scenario where my parents finally saw me as worthy of the same celebration they readily gave Mitchell. Morning came after a fitful night. I checked my phone to find birthday texts from Rachel, some friends, and a few colleagues. Nothing yet from my parents or Mitchell, but it was still early. I told myself they would probably call later or were waiting to deliver their well wishes in person. I went through my workday in a state of distracted excitement. My team had ordered cupcakes and the break room celebration was sweet but brief. I left the office early, eager to get home and make final preparations for the evening ahead. When I arrived home, I found Rachel already there, putting final touches on the apartment decorations. She had added a few tasteful birthday touches, balloons in my favorite colors, and a handmade banner that read, "Happy 34th, Trevor." Her thoughtfulness touched me deeply. "This looks amazing," I said, kissing her gratefully. "Wait until you see your gift," she replied with a mischievous smile. She handed me a beautifully wrapped box. Inside was an expensive watch I had admired months ago but considered too extravagant to purchase for myself. "Rachel, this is too much," I protested, even as I admired the timepiece. "Nothing is too much for you," she said firmly. "You deserve to be celebrated." Her words warmed me, and I felt a surge of gratitude for having her in my life. Whatever happened with my parents tonight, I had someone who truly valued me. As 7 o'clock approached, my closest friends began to arrive. Each brought thoughtful gifts, bottles of wine, and genuine enthusiasm for celebrating my birthday. The apartment filled with laughter and conversation. Everyone complimented the food and drinks. The atmosphere was exactly what I had hoped for. Warm and festive. 7:30 came and went with no sign of my parents. I checked my phone repeatedly, but there were no messages explaining their lateness. My friends noticed my frequent glances at the door but tactfully avoided mentioning it. At 7:45, the doorbell finally rang. I hurried to answer it, a mixture of relief and anticipation flooding through me. This was it. The moment I had been building up in my mind for weeks. I opened the door with an expectant smile to find my parents standing there. My father held a small gift bag, much smaller than I had anticipated. No balloons, no large package, nothing that would suggest the special surprise they had hinted at. Still, I maintained my optimism. Perhaps the small bag contained something meaningful, like keys to a new car or documentation for a surprise trip. "Happy birthday, Trevor," my mother said, giving me a brief hug. She smelled of her usual perfume, the same brand she had worn since I was a child. My father patted my shoulder, awkwardly mumbling his own birthday wishes. "Thank you for coming," I said, ushering them inside. "Everyone is already here. Can I get you something to drink?" "I got that. Chardonnay you like, Mom." My mother accepted a glass of wine, while my father requested a scotch. I led them into the living room where my friends were gathered. Rachel immediately came over to greet them warmly, ever the gracious co-host despite her private reservations about my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, so glad you could make it," she said. "Trevor has been looking forward to seeing you." My parents made polite small talk with Rachel while I finished preparing their drinks. When I returned, I noticed they had seated themselves slightly apart from my other guests, creating an invisible boundary between themselves and the rest of the party. The evening progressed with an undercurrent of tension I hoped only I could perceive. My parents conversed primarily with each other, occasionally engaging with my friends when directly addressed. My father checked his watch several times, a habit he displayed when impatient to leave. During a lull in conversation, my mother turned to me and asked, "Have you heard from Mitchell lately? His trip to New York went very well. The client loved his presentation." I nodded, trying not to show my disappointment that even at my birthday gathering the conversation had turned to Mitchell within 30 minutes. He texted me earlier, said he was sorry he could not make it tonight. "Such a shame," my mother sighed. "He is just so busy these days. The company really depends on him, you know." My father jumped in. "They are talking about making him the youngest department head they have ever had." Always knew that boy would go far. Rachel, sensing my discomfort smoothly, changed the subject by suggesting we move to the dining area for cake. I had chosen a simple but elegant chocolate cake from my favorite bakery, decorated with a minimalist design rather than traditional birthday candles and writing. As everyone gathered around, my friends sang "Happy Birthday" with genuine enthusiasm. My parents joined in, though their participation seemed perfunctory. I made the obligatory wish before cutting the first slice, secretly wishing for the approval I had sought my entire life. After cake and coffee, the moment for gift opening arrived. My friends had brought thoughtful presents reflecting their knowledge of my interests and preferences. A first edition of my favorite science fiction novel, a custom-made leather laptop bag with my initials embossed on it, tickets to an upcoming tech conference. Each gift was accompanied by a heartfelt card expressing friendship and appreciation. Finally, it was time for my parents' gift. My father handed me the small gift bag with an oddly anticipatory expression. "This is something special," he said, in a tone I could not quite interpret. The bag was lightweight, containing tissue paper and a small box. I removed the box and opened it, finding what appeared to be a novelty item. It was a small plastic box with a button. The packaging declared it a joke box for the birthday boy, with instructions to press the button for a hilarious birthday message. Confused, but still hopeful, this was merely a prelude to something more substantial. I pressed the button. The box emitted a cartoonish voice saying, "Congratulations! You are 1 year older, and none the wiser. Ha ha ha." I looked up at my parents, waiting for the real gift, the special surprise they had mentioned. But my father was chuckling while my mother wore an expectant smile, clearly waiting for my reaction to what they evidently considered a sufficient birthday present. "Do you get it?" my father asked. "Because you always think you know everything. It is a joke." The room had gone uncomfortably quiet. My friends exchanged awkward glances, while Rachel placed a supportive hand on my back. "Thank you," I managed, forcing a smile. "Very funny. We saw it at the mall and thought of you immediately," my mother explained. "And at your age, you do not really need gifts anymore, do you? You can buy yourself whatever you want." The contrast between this joke box that probably cost $10 and the lavish European vacation they had given Mitchell 2 months earlier could not have been more stark. It was not about the monetary value, but about the thought, effort, and significance behind the gesture. This cheap gag gift communicated clearly how little consideration had gone into acknowledging my birthday. "Rachel, ever." My defender quickly jumped in. "Who wants more cake? Or I could open another bottle of wine." The party atmosphere had deflated like a punctured balloon. My parents stayed for another 45 minutes, continuing to bring up Mitchell in nearly every conversation thread. My father mentioned their plans to visit Mitchell next month to see his new condo. My mother showed pictures on her phone of Mitchell and Amber at a recent family dinner I had not been invited to. Eventually, my father announced they needed to head home, citing early morning commitments the next day. They made their goodbyes, my mother, reminding me to call more often, as if their lack of meaningful connection was somehow my fault. At the door, I thanked them for coming. My father said, "Good party, son." Glad we could make it, with no acknowledgement of how late they had arrived, or how little they had engaged with my friends. As they walked to their car, I stood in the doorway watching them leave with a hollow feeling in my chest. The special surprise they had promised had been nothing more than a cheap joke at my expense. The hope I had nurtured for weeks lay shattered at my feet. I returned to the living room where my friends waited, their faces showing concern and sympathy. The party continued for another hour or so, everyone making valiant efforts to restore the celebratory mood. But something had fundamentally changed. The rejection I had experienced was too raw, too public, to completely mask. After the last guest had left, Rachel helped me clean up in silence. Finally, as we loaded the dishwasher, she spoke. "I am so sorry, Trevor. That was not right." "It is fine," I said automatically, the response I had been conditioned to give whenever my parents disappointed me. "No, it is not fine," Rachel insisted, setting down the plate she was rinsing with more force than necessary. "What they did was hurtful and disrespectful. The way they talk about Mitchell in front of you, the joke gift, all of it. It is not okay." I felt tears threatening and turned away, focusing intensely on arranging wine glasses in the cabinet. "They do not mean to hurt me," I said, though the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Maybe not," Rachel conceded. "But they do hurt you again and again. And at some point, intention stops mattering as much as impact." Her words resonated with something deep inside me. For years, I had made excuses for my parents' behavior, rationalizing their preference for Mitchell and their dismissal of my feelings. I had told myself they did not mean to cause pain, that they simply did not realize how their actions affected me. But was that really sufficient reason to continue accepting such treatment? That night, as Rachel slept beside me, I lay awake replaying the evening in my mind. The joke box, the stories about Mitchell, the clear message that I was not worth the effort they routinely extended for my brother. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of my anger, without immediately trying to rationalize it away. I was tired of being the understanding son, the one who always made allowances for their behavior. Something needed to change, and I realized with sudden clarity that the change needed to start with me. The morning after my birthday, I woke up with a clarity I had not experienced in years. The anger and hurt that had simmered beneath the surface for so long had crystallized into something more focused, more actionable. I was done accepting scraps of attention from my parents while they lavished Mitchell with unwavering support and celebration. Rachel noticed the change in me immediately. As we had coffee in my kitchen, she studied my face. "You seem different this morning." "I am," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I cannot keep doing this, pretending their behavior is acceptable. It is time I actually said something." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Whatever you decide to do, I am with you. But be careful with your expectations. People who have behaved one way for decades rarely change overnight." I nodded, appreciating both her support and her caution. "I know. I am not expecting miracles. But I cannot continue this pattern without at least trying to address it directly." After Rachel left for work, I found myself staring at the joke box my parents had given me. Such a small object, yet it represented years of dismissal and disappointment. On impulse, I took out my phone and texted Mitchell. "Hey, need to ask you something. Do Mom and Dad ever make you feel less valued or important than me?" His response came quickly, suggesting he was not as busy with work as he had claimed when missing my birthday. "What number? Why would you ask that? Everything okay?" I hesitated, then decided to be direct. "Not really. Their gift for my birthday was a $10 joke box. 2 months ago, they gave you a European vacation. See the discrepancy?" There was a long pause before his next message appeared. "That does seem pretty different. But maybe they just show love in different ways with each of us." I would not read too much into it. His dismissive response fueled my resolve. Easy to say when you are on the preferred side of the equation. This is not a one-time thing. It is a lifetime pattern. "You are overreacting," Mitchell texted back. "They love both of us. Maybe talk to them if you are upset instead of texting me complaints." I put down my phone, frustrated, but also realizing Mitchell was right about one thing. I did need to talk to my parents directly. Nothing would change if I continued to silently accept their treatment while only venting my frustrations to Rachel, or now Mitchell. That evening, I called my parents and asked if I could come over on Saturday to talk. My mother sounded surprised, but agreed readily enough. "Is everything all right, Trevor? You sound strange." "We can discuss it when I see you," I replied, not wanting to get into it over the phone. "Just some things I need to say in person." The next few days passed in a blur of work and mental preparation. I rehearsed what I wanted to say, trying to find the balance between honesty and accusation. I wanted them to understand my feelings without becoming so defensive that they could not hear me. Saturday arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle-fitting weather for the conversation ahead. Rachel offered to come with me, but I declined. This was something I needed to do alone. I arrived at my parents' house at the agreed-upon time of 2 o'clock. The familiar 2-story suburban home looked the same as always, immaculately maintained, with carefully pruned shrubs and seasonal flowers in the front beds. I had grown up in this house, yet it had rarely felt like the warm, accepting home I had craved. My mother answered the door, greeting me with a hug that I returned stiffly. My father was in the living room watching a golf tournament on television. He muted it when I entered, but did not turn it off completely. "Trevor, good to see you," he said, rising to shake my hand. "Would you like something to drink?" "I just made coffee." I declined, wanting to keep a clear head. We sat down, my parents on the sofa, and me in an armchair across from them. The physical positioning felt symbolic, with me facing them alone. "So what is this about?" my father asked, getting straight to the point as was his habit. "Your mother has been worried since your call." I took a deep breath, centering myself. "I want to talk about how you treat me compared to Mitchell, about the patterns I have noticed throughout my life, and specifically about what happened at my birthday." My parents exchanged glances. My mother frowned slightly. "What do you mean, how we treat you compared to Mitchell? We love both our sons equally." "I know you believe that," I said carefully, "but your actions tell a different story. 2 months ago, you gave Mitchell an all-expenses-paid trip to Europe for his birthday. You threw him an elaborate party and made emotional speeches about how proud you are of him. For my birthday, you gave me a joke box that cost maybe $10, arrived late to my gathering, and spent most of the evening talking about Mitchell." My father's expression hardened. "Is that what this is about?" Birthday presents. "You are 34 years old, Trevor, not 14. Mitchell is still establishing himself. You are already settled in your career. This is not about the monetary value of the gifts," I clarified, though his response was exactly what I had anticipated. "It is about the thought, effort, and care behind them. It is about the message they send. And it is not just birthdays. This has been happening my entire life." I went on to detail specific instances from childhood through adulthood where I had felt overlooked, undervalued, or directly compared unfavorably to Mitchell. The science fair they missed, the achievements they minimized, the family events where Mitchell was the center of attention while I sat on the periphery. My mother's eyes filled with tears as I spoke. "We never meant to make you feel that way, Trevor. We have always been proud of you. You were just always so independent, so capable. Mitchell needed more guidance, more support." "That is part of the problem," I replied. "You assumed I needed less love, less celebration, less acknowledgement, because I appeared self-sufficient. But I was a child, too. I needed my parents just as much as Mitchell did." My father, looking uncomfortable with the emotional direction of the conversation, interjected. "You have always been sensitive, Trevor, taking things too personally. We raised you both the best we could." His dismissal of my feelings nearly caused me to lose my composure, but I held firm. This is not about sensitivity. This is about consistent patterns of behavior that have made me feel like a second-class member of this family for most of my life. The conversation continued in this vein, with my parents alternating between denial, justification, and occasional moments of reflection. It was during one of these reflective pauses that the doorbell rang. My mother went to answer it, returning with Mitchell in tow. I was surprised to see him, not having expected his presence at this discussion. "I asked Mitchell to join us," my father explained, "since this concerns him too." Mitchell looked uncomfortable, glancing between us. "Trevor texted me about the birthday thing. I thought maybe I should be part of this conversation." Part of me was annoyed at my father's decision to call in Mitchell without consulting me. It felt like another example of them prioritizing his involvement over my autonomy. But another part recognized this might be beneficial, forcing all of us to address the family dynamics openly. "Fine," I said. Since we are all here, let me be completely honest. For as long as I can remember, I have felt less important, less valued, and less loved in this family than Mitchell. I have spent my life trying to earn your approval, attention, and affection, while watching you freely give those things to my brother. The directness of my statement created a heavy silence in the room. Mitchell looked genuinely shocked. My mother appeared distressed, and my father's expression was unreadable. "That is not true," Mitchell finally said. "If anything, I always felt pressure to live up to your example. You were the smart one, the responsible one. Mom and Dad were always telling me, 'Why cannot you be more like Trevor?' This revelation surprised me. Really? Because, from my perspective, you were the golden child who could do no wrong." My mother wiped at her eyes. "We never meant to create this competition between you. We love you both, just in different ways." "That is the problem," I said firmly. "Love should not be so dramatically different that one child gets a European vacation and heartfelt speeches, while the other gets a joke box and conversations about the absent sibling." My father, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "Maybe we have made mistakes, Trevor. We are not perfect parents. But this victim mentality will not help anything." His words stung, but I refused to be derailed. "This is not about victimhood. This is about asking for equal treatment and respect going forward. This is about setting boundaries about what I will and will not accept anymore." The conversation continued for hours, sometimes heated, occasionally tearful, but consistently honest, in a way our family interactions had never been before. Mitchell, to his credit, listened more than he spoke, and when he did contribute, it was often to acknowledge that he had observed some of the differential treatment I described. "I guess I never thought about how it looked from Trevor's perspective," he admitted at one point. "I just accepted the attention, without questioning why he was not getting the same." By the time the discussion wound down, we had not solved everything, but something fundamental had shifted. My parents, though defensive at times, had been forced to confront specific examples of their behavior that they could not easily explain away. Mitchell had gained insight into family dynamics he had benefited from without examining, and I had finally given voice to feelings I had suppressed for decades. As I prepared to leave, my father approached me somewhat stiffly. "I cannot promise we will get everything right going forward," he said. "But I hear what you are saying, and I will try to do better." My mother hugged me more genuinely than she had when I arrived. "I had no idea you were carrying all this hurt," she whispered. "I am so sorry, Trevor." Their acknowledgments were small steps, not complete transformations, but they represented more progress than I had experienced in years of silent suffering. As I drove home, I felt lighter, somehow as if speaking my truth had released a burden I had carried for as long as I could remember. When I got home, Rachel was waiting anxiously. "How did it go?" she asked. As soon as I walked through the door, I sat beside her on the couch, emotionally exhausted but oddly peaceful. It was hard, really hard. But I think for the first time in my life, they actually heard me. The weekend following my confrontation with my family was surprisingly quiet. I half expected angry calls from my father or tearful voicemails from my mother, but there was only silence. Mitchell sent a brief text saying he was thinking about our conversation and wanted to talk more when he had processed everything. I appreciated his thoughtfulness, a quality I had not always associated with my brother. Rachel remained my steadfast support, proud of me for finally standing up for myself, but cautious about expecting too much too soon. "Family dynamics take years to form," she reminded me. "They will not be dismantled in a day." I returned to work on Monday with a new sense of personal agency. Having confronted an issue I had avoided for decades, I felt more confident in other areas of my life as well. In a team meeting, I spoke up about a project concern I would have previously kept to myself. My boss responded positively, thanking me for my insight. On Wednesday evening, I received a call from my mother. Her voice sounded different, more hesitant than her usual confident tone. "Trevor, your father and I have been doing a lot of thinking since Saturday. We wondered if you might be willing to come over for dinner this weekend. Mitchell will be there too. We think it is important that we continue this conversation as a family." I was surprised by the invitation, having expected a much longer period of awkwardness, before any further family gatherings. "I would like that," I replied. "Would it be all right if I brought Rachel?" "Of course," my mother said quickly. "She is always welcome. She is important to you, so she is important to us." That simple acknowledgement of Rachel's significance in my life felt like a small but meaningful shift. In the past, my parents had been cordial but somewhat distant with her, never fully embracing her as a potential permanent addition to the family, the way they had immediately done with Mitchell's girlfriend, Amber. When Sunday arrived, Rachel and I drove to my parents' house together. She squeezed my hand encouragingly as we walked to the door. "Remember, this is just one dinner. Do not expect everything to be resolved tonight." My mother greeted us warmly, embracing Rachel with unusual enthusiasm. My father shook my hand, then somewhat awkwardly pulled me into a brief hug. Mitchell and Amber were already there, sitting in the living room with glasses of wine. The atmosphere was tense at first, everyone hyper-aware of the recent confrontation and unsure how to proceed. My mother had prepared an elaborate meal, all of my favorite dishes from childhood. A gesture that did not go unnoticed. As we sat down to dinner, my father cleared his throat. "Before we begin, I want to say something." He looked directly at me, making deliberate eye contact in a way that felt new. "Your mother and I have been doing a lot of talking since last weekend, a lot of reflection. And we owe you an apology, Trevor." I nearly dropped my fork in surprise. In 34 years, I could not recall my father ever explicitly apologizing to me for anything. He continued, "We did not realize how our actions were affecting you. Or maybe on some level we did, but it was easier not to examine it too closely. Either way, we were wrong." My mother reached over to place her hand on mine. "We love you, Trevor. We always have. But love is not enough if it is not expressed in a way that makes you feel valued and respected." Mitchell, looking uncomfortable but determined, added, "I need to apologize too. I benefited from the imbalance without ever questioning it or standing up for you. That was selfish of me." I felt a tightness in my throat, emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Rachel discreetly passed me a tissue under the table. "Thank you," I managed. "That means a lot to me." "We want to do better," my father said. "We are not perfect and we will probably make mistakes. But we want to try." What followed was the most honest family dinner of my life. We discussed specific instances from the past, not to assign blame but to understand perspectives. I learned that my academic success had intimidated my parents, who had struggled in school themselves. My father admitted he had found it easier to connect with Mitchell over sports and outdoor activities, while my more intellectual interests had left him feeling inadequate. Mitchell revealed that he had grown up in the shadow of my achievements, constantly hearing about my grades and accomplishments. "It was like living with a ghost of perfection," he explained. "I could never measure up academically, so I leaned into being social and athletic instead." These revelations did not erase the years of hurt, but they provided context I had never had before. My parents were not malicious. They were flawed humans who had fallen into patterns they did not fully understand or acknowledge. The conversation shifted to establishing new patterns going forward. My mother suggested monthly family dinners, where everyone would have time to share updates about their lives. My father, in a surprising move, asked if I would be willing to teach him more about my work in software engineering, an interest he had never previously expressed. Mitchell proposed a siblings-only outing, just the two of us, to begin building a relationship independent of our parents' influence. "I realized I do not really know you as an adult," he admitted. "That is my loss, and I want to change it." As the evening drew to a close, my father disappeared, briefly returning with a small wrapped package. "This is not to make up for the joke box," he said, handing it to me. "Nothing can undo that thoughtlessness. But we want you to know we are serious about changing." Inside was a key. I looked up, confused. "It is to the cabin," my mother explained. "We have put it in both your and Mitchell's names. It has always been meant for both of you, but we want to make that official now." The family cabin in the mountains had been my childhood happy place, the setting for rare, peaceful family memories. This gesture, making me an equal owner alongside Mitchell, carried significant symbolic weight. "Thank you," I said, simply knowing they understood the depth of meaning behind those two words. As Rachel and I prepared to leave, my mother hugged me tightly. "I am proud of you, Trevor," she whispered. "Not just for your accomplishments, but for the man you have become, for having the courage to tell us difficult truths we needed to hear." Driving home, Rachel noticed my silence. "You okay?" "Yeah," I replied thoughtfully. "I am just processing. I never expected them to be so receptive." "Sometimes people can surprise you," she said. "Even parents." "It is just the beginning," I acknowledged. "We have decades of patterns to work through. But it feels like a real beginning, not just another false start." That night I reflected on how one moment of courage, one decision to speak up instead of swallowing my hurt, had potentially changed the course of my family relationships. The path forward would not be perfect or always smooth, but for the first time in my adult life, I felt hopeful about my place within my family. 1 year has passed since that pivotal birthday, since the joke box that became a catalyst for change. I sit in my apartment, now shared with Rachel since our engagement 6 months ago, reflecting on how much has transformed in such a relatively short time. The shift in my family dynamics did not happen overnight. There were awkward moments, occasional backsliding into old patterns, and times when I had to gently but firmly remind my parents of our new understanding. Change, especially in relationships as established as parent-child bonds, requires consistent effort and reinforcement. But the changes, however gradual, have been real and meaningful. My monthly calls with my parents have evolved from stilted exchanges of basic information to genuine conversations. My father actually asks questions about my work, now making sincere efforts to understand my professional world. My mother shares more of her own thoughts and feelings, revealing dimensions of her personality I never knew existed. Mitchell and I have developed a relationship independent of our parents. Our monthly brother outings started awkwardly, but have grown into something I genuinely look forward to. Last month, we went hiking in the mountains and talked for hours about everything from relationships to career aspirations to childhood memories seen now through adult eyes. I have discovered that beneath the golden child exterior is a thoughtful, sometimes insecure man who is trying to figure out his own path just as I am. Perhaps the most tangible evidence of change came with my 35th birthday. There was no extravagant party, no European vacation. Instead, my parents organized a small, intimate dinner at my favorite restaurant. They invited Rachel, Mitchell, and Amber, and my 2 closest friends. The setting was modest compared to Mitchell's previous celebration, but the thought and care behind it were evident. My father made a toast that brought tears to my eyes. He spoke not of accomplishments or pride, but of growth and connection. He acknowledged our difficult past and expressed genuine gratitude for the chance to build something better. My mother had created a photo album chronicling my life, including many moments I had not realized she had documented. The time and effort she had invested in this gift spoke volumes about her commitment to our healing process. Mitchell gave me a framed photograph of the 2 of us as children, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. To remind us both where we started and how far we can go, he had written on the back. These gestures were not about monetary value or grandeur. They were about recognition, effort, and genuine care. They represented the shift from performative family relationships to authentic connection. The engagement ring on Rachel's finger represents another kind of growth. My experiences with my family had made me hesitant about creating my own, afraid I might perpetuate patterns I had experienced. Therapy, which I began shortly after the confrontation with my parents, has helped me process these fears and recognize that awareness is the first step in breaking cycles. When I proposed to Rachel 6 months ago, my parents' reaction was everything I could have hoped for. There were tears of joy, genuine excitement, and immediate inclusion of Rachel in family discussions. They insisted on hosting an engagement dinner and have been respectfully involved in wedding planning without overstepping boundaries. The most profound changes, however, have been internal. I have learned several life-altering lessons through this journey. First, I learned the value of speaking my truth even when it feels frightening or uncomfortable. For decades, I swallowed my hurt and resentment, believing that confrontation would only make things worse. In reality, my silence allowed harmful patterns to continue unchecked. It was only when I found the courage to articulate my experience that change became possible. Second, I discovered the power of setting boundaries. By clearly communicating what treatment I would and would not accept, I gave both myself and my family the opportunity to create healthier interactions. Boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. They are guidelines that show others how to remain in your life in positive ways. Third, I learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing past hurts. It means choosing not to let those hurts control your present and future. I have forgiven my parents not because they deserve it or have perfectly atoned, but because holding on to resentment was poisoning my own life. Forgiveness has been a gift to myself as much as to them. Fourth, I recognize that people can only meet expectations they are aware of. For years, I silently hoped my parents would intuitively understand my needs and disappointments. But mind reading is not a realistic expectation in any relationship. Clear, compassionate communication is essential for understanding and growth. Fifth, I understood that people often show love in the ways they themselves wish to receive it, not necessarily in the ways others need. My parents' expressions of care were filtered through their own experiences and limitations. This does not excuse the hurt they caused, but it helps explain it and create space for new patterns to emerge. My healing journey has involved more than just family reconciliation. I have built a stronger support network of friends who value me for exactly who I am. I have advanced in my career, taking on leadership roles I might previously have avoided. I have developed practices like journaling and meditation that help me stay connected to my authentic self, regardless of external validation. Rachel has been my constant supporter through all of this, but our relationship has evolved too. I am more open with her about my needs and feelings, less afraid that vulnerability will lead to rejection. She tells me often how much she appreciates this newfound emotional accessibility. As I look toward the future, toward marriage and perhaps someday children of my own, I carry these lessons with me. The joke box sits on my shelf not as a reminder of hurt, but as a symbol of transformation. From that small, thoughtless gift came the courage to demand better, the wisdom to create change, and the growth that has enriched every aspect of my life. If there is one thing I would share with anyone facing similar family dynamics, it would be this: your worth is not determined by others' ability to recognize it. You deserve to be seen, heard, and valued, and sometimes you must be the one to show others how to do that. It may be frightening. It may be difficult. But the freedom and authenticity waiting on the other side are worth every uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes the greatest gift is not wrapped in pretty paper. Sometimes it is the courage to speak your truth and demand the respect you deserve. That gift changed my life, and it might change yours too. Have you ever had to confront a painful family dynamic? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below, and remember to like, subscribe, and share this story if it resonated with you. Thank you for joining me on this journey of growth and healing. Remember, it is never too late to create the family relationships you deserve.